Exposed, 7 spine-chilling encounters with the haunted and cursed entities of the internet. Rachel's heart pounded as she scrolled through the erratic messages flooding her children's tablets. The sun had dropped below the horizon, and with it came an unnerving chill that gripped her gut. "I see you every night," the words glowed on Emma's screen, sending an icy shiver down Rachel's spine. She could feel the oppressive weight of the house pressing in around her, the old wallpaper peeling back like the layers of a rotten wound. This charming neighborhood had promised safety, a sanctuary for her and her kids from the ghosts of their broken past. But the whispers hidden in the cracks of this quaint home hinted otherwise. Each day brought more strange readings, and at night, Rachel found herself awake, wide-eyed, listening to the creaks and moans of the house. "It's just the old pipes," she told herself, but when that familiar voice hounded at her children, she knew there was something much darker lurking nearby. "I know your secrets," the texts warned, echoing the hushed tones of a childhood full of urban legends. Surely they were just pranks? Yet why did they feel so personal? At first, she dismissed the messages as idiotic harassment from neighborhood kids. But when Jack's phone blared in the dead of night with a sinister notification saying he'd be alone soon, Rachel's gut twisted into a tight knot. What kind of games were these? Each time her children would read the texts, their eyes widened, laughter replaced by grim shadows. She needed to investigate. Trading her initial worry for resolve, Rachel sought clarity from the local police, but she was met with stony gazes and evasive murmurs. They didn't want to hear about the feeling of dread that eased into her bones. "It's just a phase, kids are odd," a cop muttered, brushing her aside like a pesky fly. Yet somewhere deep in Maplewood, she discovered whispers of the decrepit Maplewood Memorial Hospital, a ghostly shell of what used to house broken spirits, literal and figurative. What happened within those crumbling walls? She couldn't shake the connection her kids' messages had to that ominous place. Curiosity warred with fear in Rachel's mind, drawing her closer to that shadowy edifice that loomed over the town like a watchful beast. The night they finally ventured to the abandoned hospital, clouds swirled darkly above them like accumulating doubt. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Heart racing, Rachel drew her flashlight from her backpack and stepped into the suffocating darkness of the hospital. Each step echoed through the empty halls like a heartbeat, reverberating against the shattered remnants of lives once lived. She felt eyes, countless unseen stares, boring through her very soul. Sweat beaded on her brow. Then she stumbled upon a room littered with photographs, faces twisted in terror, her family's bright smiles among them. Rachel's breath caught. What is this place? Suddenly, cold air wrapped around her neck, and a chilling whisper hissed in her ear, "You should have never come here." Fear engulfed her like smoke, thick and suffocating, as realization washed over her. The fight for survival was beginning, urging her to confront not just the entity taunting her children but the entangled darkness the Maplewood community had kept hidden. She had crossed a line, and the true horror wasn't just the past, it was the unsettling truth lurking among the supposedly friendly faces of Maplewood. What would she uncover when the dawn broke? Would it be a sanctuary or a tomb? Rachel's heart raced as she stumbled back, breathless, the icy grip around her neck tightening. The whisper hung in the air, a malicious echo that twisted her stomach. She was no longer just a mother protecting her children, she was a target. Each creak of the hospital seemed to mock her resolve, the walls closing in like a predator with hungry jaws. She needed to escape. Turning on her heel, she retraced her steps, the flashlight beam slicing through the blackness as it danced nervously along the peeling walls. Her thoughts circled back to Emma and Jack. Were they asleep, blissfully ignorant of the horrors sneaking into their lives? Or worse, had they already encountered whatever dark presence was lingering in this forsaken place? Outside, the wind howled like a lost soul, the sound clawing at her ears. Rachel stumbled into a corridor lined with brittle memories. Crumpled beds and broken instruments revealed the tragedies of lives once saved and lost. Her eyes flickered over everything, searching for a semblance of comfort, a sign that she could still turn back, that she hadn't gone too far. Then she saw something a glimmer on the ground. Leaning closer, her breath hitching, she discovered more photographs, like offerings in this macabre shrine. There, nestled between images of the wretched and dying, were snapshots of her children. A new layer of panic settled over her as cold dread seeped into her veins. The faces in the pictures wore expressions of despair, mouths open in silent screams. How had someone captured this darkness? Enough! She shouted into the void, her voice cracking against the walls. She was done being a pawn. Picking up the closest photo, she felt an unexpected heat, a strange connection, like the picture was an anchor tethering her to something twisted yet powerful. What do you want from us? A slow, creeping laugh emerged from the shadows, wrapping around her like a vine. They belong to me now, the voice whispered, vibrating through the cold air. It was a voice that resonated deeply within her, intertwining with the very essence of her fears about motherhood, loss, helplessness. Rachel's instincts kicked in. She had to find Emma and Jack. Racing down the corridor, she envisioned her kids, innocent and unaware of the chaos lurking in the dark, and she couldn't let this sinister force claim them. The flickering of her flashlight cast eerie shadows, each playing tricks at the edges of her vision. She heard the sound of footsteps behind her, dragging and slow. Not hers. What do you want? She yelled, her voice wavering. The steps quickened, echoing back at her with an awful rhythm, taunting her. She felt it, a cold draft, the presence tightening around her, each breath becoming harder to draw. Leave my children alone. Suddenly, the front doors of the hospital slammed shut with a reverberating thud. Blackness surrounded her, the light of her flashlight flickering. Panic clawed at her chest as she envisioned the shadows congregating, pushing in closer. No, no, no. In desperation, she turned, frantically seeking an escape route. There was a door, slightly ajar. Hope blossomed as she sprinted toward it, only to stop short when she spotted movement. A figure stood in the doorway, cloaked in darkness. Rachel froze, her blood running cold. The slender silhouette was strangely familiar, but some part of her mind recoiled at the sight. With trembling hands, she raised the flashlight, prepared to confront whatever horror awaited her. Mom, the voice was Emma's, but it sounded off. Strange and distant, dripping with a sense of dread. Rachel's heart sank as she stepped forward, ready to embrace her child, yet terror gripped her. The truth slithered into her mind: the entity was playing a game, and her children were the pawns. What have you done? She whispered, the weight of vulnerability pulling her to the ground. As Rachel's fingers trembled around the flashlight, she heard the soft voices of her children echoing around her. We had to find you, Mom. We all have to stay together. The ground beneath her shook, and she felt the walls of the hospital pulse, alive and breathing with a fear that smothered her gut. What had they awakened? What path lay ahead? A shadow moved toward her, its intentions veiled in dark. The very silence seemed to anticipate the answer as Rachel braced for what lay beyond the gaping dark, a choice that would seal her fate and her children's. The night was far from over. Mom, Emma's voice echoed again, yet something about it chilled Rachel deeper than the shadows surrounding her. It sounded like her daughter, but it was twisted, a hollow echo lost in despair. Emma, come here. Rachel's heart raced as she fought the urge to run. Each second felt like a tightening noose around her throat. The weak beam from her flashlight wavered against the wall, illuminating the distorted figure of her child. Mom, you have to listen, Emma said. Each word dripped with an eerie cadence. Rachel stumbled backward, against the rough texture of the cell wall. Where's Jack? She strained her voice above the whispering darkness. The weight of despair settled over her like an old, heavy cloak. He is right here with me. Emma pointed behind her, and after a heartbeat, Jack emerged from the depths slower, more deliberate than his sister had. His face was pale, as if the life had been sucked out of him. Rachel's breath caught. Jack! She shouted, but fear grabbed hold. Something wasn't right. His eyes appeared glazed, reflections of another world. They held a mixture of terror and detachment, as if he was being pulled from mere bystanders looking through a grime-covered window. Mom, Jack echoed, the name sounding oddly foreign on his lips. You shouldn't have come back here. What are you talking about? Rachel felt the edges of her sanity fray, the walls resonating with the mounting absurdity of it all. We were trying to protect you. Emma's voice faded, replaced by rough laughter that reverberated through the cold corridor. Rachel's heart thudded violently against her ribcage. The shadows twisted around her, pulling at her resolve and wrapping her in despair. Get away from her! A sudden voice shot out of the dark, a new presence, heavy and suffocating, enveloping the air around them. Rachel's body instinctively recoiled. It felt like an electric shock traveling through her veins, sending her back toward the door she had just come through. Join us! The sinister laughter erupted louder, filling the void, drowning out her thoughts. The realization clawed at her mind, this wasn't her children anymore, the entity was mocking her. It had twisted their essence into something sinister. Rachel's thoughts spun as shadows coalesced into forms, flickering with the iciness of the hospital's halls. They pulsed and shifted, like a dark mist curling at her feet, beckoning her to join in their suffering. No! You can't have them! She screamed, gripping the flashlight tighter as if it were a weapon. She wouldn't let them take her children. Not like this. Rachel, we need you. Jack's voice was fragmented, a whisper on the wind, both pleading and accusatory. It's too late, you already opened the door. I would rather die than let you go. Rachel's resolve hardened. She was done with running. The choice to confront this nightmare settled within her. They needed her more than the darkness did. With a sudden rush, she lunged toward Emma and Jack, determined to break the hold. We can fight it. We're stronger together. But before she could grasp their hands, a powerful force thrust her back. The walls shook violently, and something dark and forbidding rose between them, a shadow that pulsed like a beating heart. Foolish mother! It hissed, the sound echoing as terror painted the walls around her. They belong to the shadows now. Your love cannot save them. Rachel's throat tightened, tears streaming down her cheeks as despair clawed at her chest, squeezing tighter. The walls groaned with ancient anguish, and the air turned thick. Then, for a fleeting moment, Rachel saw a flicker of recognition in Emma's eyes, a spark of the girl she knew and loved, fighting against the dark entity gripping her. Mom! Fight it! The faint voice shattered the oppressive silence. It filled Rachel with courage, igniting an ember of defiance deep inside her. But how could she fight the very shadows of despair and hopelessness? The weight of impossibility pressed down on her as the shadows converged, closing her off from the light. As the entity lunged, Rachel made a choice, too. Either succumb to the darkness or shatter the chains binding her family to its grasp. The walls trembled, ready to crush or release her. How much power did a mother have against a darkness born of helplessness? With her final breath, she shouted a vow, I will not let you take them. And just like that, the ground lurched beneath her feet, dragging her once again toward an uncertain fate. What sacrifice was required to save her children, and what would remain of her on the other side? As the shadows whispered promises of despair, Rachel braced for the reckoning that awaited, knowing the path ahead would either lead to salvation or absolute ruin. The world around Rachel spun sharply, the very air charged with an electric vibration. She felt the grip of the shadows, cold and unyielding, wrapping around her ankles like shackles. Her heart hammered against her chest, urging her to move, to flee this nightmare. But deep down, she knew flight was no longer an option. Mom! Emma's cry pierced through the oppressive darkness, the sound laced with fear and desperation. Clarity flickered in Rachel's mind, and with it, a strange resolve ignited. She had to reach her children. It was now or never. Hold on to me! Rachel shouted, forcing herself forward, battling the unseen force pulling her back. She stretched out her hands, feeling just beyond the edge of despair. Jack stumbled but remained rooted to the spot, a ghost of his former self. It won't work! He shouted, his voice breaking like glass. Nothing can save us now. Don't say that! Rachel's voice cracked, infused with an intensity that startled even her. We're stronger than this. She closed her eyes, pouring everything she had into the words. Look past the dark. she commanded, forcing her intention through layers of chaos. Fight it. Please. For a brief, flickering moment, something shifted. She sensed it, the bond of blood, of love, struggling against the suffocating silence. Emma's gaze flickered again, and for a heartbeat, Rachel saw her daughter's spirit reach out. The shadows recoiled as if stung, a ripple of confusion sweeping through their ranks. But darkness does not yield easily. Mom, help us. Emma's voice crumbled like crumbling ash, dragging Rachel into deeper uncertainty. The shadows coiled tighter around Jack, and he trembled under their weight. Stop! Rachel cried, her voice rising in desperation. She plunged forward, the flashlight beam sweeping over Emma, revealing an anguished expression. The laughter, chilling and hollow, echoed again around them. No matter how you fight, your children are ours. The entity taunted, enveloping the air like smoke. You are too late. No. Rachel spat back, mustering every ounce of strength within her. They're mine. And I will not let you take them. With an unrelenting surge, she ripped free from the fear wrapping around her. She could feel her own power connected to Emma and Jack, a tether unseen but unbreakable. She breathed deeply, focusing on the warmth of their memories, their laughter, their smiles, the genuine love they shared. Remember who you are. She cried out. We are family. The shadows hesitated, their form writhing as if caught in turmoil. Rachel could see Jessica's strength wane, but within her moment of doubt, Rachel felt the weight of a choice pressing down on her, hers or her children's mom. Emma's eyes widened. The door. It's still open. Rachel's heart sank. The way back was there, the exit beckoning like an inviting warmth, yet she faced the realization that escaping this horrible place meant leaving her children behind. No, I won't abandon you. She shouted, shaking her head violently. But the laughter roared back, bitter and mocking. You think love can unbind you? The price for their freedom is your own. Rachel's chest tightened as she fought against the creeping dread. Memories of what her children deserved flooded her mind. She would do anything to save them. Facing the shadows, she felt time slow, her breath quickened. Take me instead. She screamed into the void as the shadows began to close in once more. I will give everything for them. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled as if slapped, filled with foreboding. The darkness quivered. The air thickened, whispers rising, clawing for sound, but all was drowned beneath the force of her declaration. Jack lurched forward in a desperate attempt to grasp Rachel's hand. No. Mom, don't, but there was no turning back. She could feel a vibrant pulse of hope blooming within her, defying the despair around her. It was risky, yes. But at that moment, Rachel could see through the darkness, past the entity, glimmers of light dancing just out of reach. Would her sacrifice be enough? As the air grew eerily still, all that remained was a looming silence, heavy with anticipation. What awaited her, salvation or oblivion? She braced for the final confrontation, her heart a wild drumbeat against the encroaching dark. And all at once, the shadows surged. The shadows surged like a tidal wave, a dark wall rushing towards Rachel. The laughter was deafening, reverberating in her skull. It felt alive, twisting and bending her resolve. Mom! Emma cried again, a high, desperate wail that sliced through Rachel's heartbeat. She couldn't lose them, not now, not after they had fought so hard to pull through. She clutched at the threads of love tying her to her children and felt those threads dangerously fraying. The air around them thickened, almost viscous, sticking to her skin. Rachel could hardly breathe, but she refused to succumb to the suffocating despair closing in. Stay with me. She shouted, not just to her kids but to herself. Focus on the light. The darkness hesitated once more. She could feel it, the shadows recoiled, dimming for just a moment. Rachel lunged toward the flickering light, driven by pure desperation. She was no longer just a mother. She was a warrior. Jack wrapped his arms around Emma, pulling her close. The shadows threatened to pull them apart, stretching like thin, twisted fingers toward their separation. Don't let them take you. Jack yelled, his voice faltering. Please. Rachel felt the energy shifting, swirling in a cyclone of power and pain. She could almost see their spirits flickering inside the storm, dim and cold. Together! She bellowed, positioning herself between the shadows and her children. Tell me you're with me. Mom! We're here. Emma's voice quivered, but the determination was there. Jack nodded, eyes shining with fear but also strength. They were fighting against the darkness. With those words, a surge spread through Rachel. The energy built up inside her until it felt like a blaze. She opened her mouth and cried out a prayer, a wild, savage plea for strength. As the last word left her lips, a flash of blinding light erupted from her core, rippling outward like waves. The shadows screeched, their laughter twisting into cries of agony as the light collided with them, forcing them back, pushing the darkness away, if only for a moment. But the relief was fleeting. The shadows regrouped, more furious than before, their mass swirling, transforming into an ominous whirlpool of rage. You think this is over? You're mistaken, Rachel. You have made a mistake by calling forth the light. It only strengthens us. Her heart sank at the realization. The light blazed around her, but it was like gasoline on a fire. The shadows metamorphosed into grotesque shapes, whispering secrets of despair that gnawed at her resolve. Whispers of her failures, her insecurities, urging her to give in. Mom, keep fighting. Emma wailed, and tears streamed down her face. Don't listen. Panic flooded Rachel, threatening to overtake her. She gazed into the face of the swirling darkness, feeling its grip tighten around her throat. The air was frigid, and a chilling dread swept through her bones. What if she couldn't hold them off? What if she was losing herself? No! She shouted, forcing the words through clenched teeth. I am not afraid. At that moment, the tremors inside her exploded outward. Rachel felt a warmth radiating through her, spreading like roots grounding her in this reality. The shadows pushed against the borders of the light, but she was the barrier they'd never breach. The laughter turned to a howl, and with renewed courage, Rachel stood firm. I will protect my family, no matter the cost. But shadows are clever. As Rachel focused on the growing light, she felt her tether to Jack and Emma weaken. Just as hope surged, the shadows lunged for her, stretching out like ravenous jaws ready to consume. Mom! No! Jack screamed. Suddenly, Rachel felt something shift. The light flared brightly, not from her but from behind her. A figure emerged, a silhouette against the blaze, but it was different. The shadows trembled. Who? Rachel whispered, her heart racing. The figure stepped forward. A roar of energy crashed over the shadows. I will end this. The voice declared, echoing through the air. In that fraction of a second, Rachel felt hope leap within her. But who was this figure, and what did their arrival mean for the battle yet to be fought? Would this presence be the savior they needed, or did it signal something darker? Tension crackled like static in the air, pushing Rachel to the brink. She needed to know who or what stood beside her, but a darker force threatened to tear them apart. Time was slipping through her fingers, and she could feel the shadows, hungry and waiting. Would the light hold against the encroaching darkness, or was it just a temporary veil on the horrors that lay deep within? The answer was approaching fast. The figure stepped into the light, revealing themselves as a woman with eyes that burned like molten gold. She radiated a fierce energy, flames curling around her from nowhere. Rachel's heart raced. Was she friend or foe? The shadows hesitated, wavering in their assault. Stay behind me. The woman commanded, her voice deep and resonant. Rachel felt the force of her words. It was as if the very air obeyed her, shimmering like heat on pavement. Jack and Emma clung to Rachel, uncertain but together. The shadows howled in fury, claws reaching for the golden woman, but she raised a hand, and an ethereal barrier flared to life, pushing the darkness back like a receding tide. Do you remember the source of your strength, Rachel? The woman said, her voice firm yet calm. Remember what you fight for. Rachel's mind raced. Thoughts of Jack's laughter, Emma's smile flooded her vision. The love pulsed in her chest, rekindling her hope. I won't let them take my family, she shouted, finding her footing once more. The shadows screeched, angry at their obstruction, their mouths gnashing violently at the edges of the light. The woman's aura shimmered like an iridescent dawn, and with each flicker of her energy, the shadows recoiled as if burned. Channel that love, the woman urged. It's your weapon. Use it. With determination surging through her, Rachel closed her eyes for just a moment. She focused, breathing deeply, feeling the warmth of her children beside her. They were her everything. Together, she cried, her voice soaring above the chaos. Together, we stand. As if acknowledging her command, Jack and Emma joined hands with her, their fingers intertwining like a chain. The warmth spread, growing and pulsing, a beacon shining in the relentless dark. Light exploded around them, enveloping the shadowy forms, who writhed in frenzied agony, the shrieks melding into a cacophony of despair. That's it. Don't relent. The woman roared, pushing forward with them. Rachel felt the energy swell, merging with her children's, creating a bond stronger than anything they had experienced before. They forced the darkness back, inch by inch, until it began to crack and splinter, like ice shattering underfoot. But just then, the shadows coiled around them, wrapping like snake-like tendrils, grabbing at their limbs and pulling. The golden woman faltered, and the darkness surged forward, ravenous, greedy to reclaim its victims. No! Fight it! She implored, her voice cracking as she struggled against the tide. Rachel saw the fear in her children's eyes, felt the weight of doom as the shadows slipped over them, muffling their screams. She felt the tug in her chest, the love beginning to dim. What if she couldn't hold the light? Mom! Emma cried, her tiny frame swallowed by shadow. I won't lose you. Rachel screamed. She could barely breathe, panic clawing at her throat like a strangling vine. The shadows were losing their form, becoming a swirling mass of darkness, a void threatening to consume everything. The woman stepped forward again, pushing the light with her hands and screaming back at the darkness. Remember who you are. You have the power. At that moment, Rachel felt an electric jolt surge through her, an epiphany. She was their mother, their protector. This battle was hers to win or lose. She concentrated on every moment she had shared with her children, the laughter, the hugs, the endless love they shared. Come back. Fight with me. With that rallying cry, Rachel wove the light into a shield, pushing back against the shadows that clawed and scraped at them. The woman joined her, and together they surged forward, willing the light to fill the void. But the darkness laughed, its sinister voice coiling around them. You think you can defeat us? We are forever. We are part of you. Rachel's heart sank but then ignited with fierce determination. No. You're nothing. You don't own me. The golden woman joined her, channeling their combined love and resolve, pouring everything they had into the light. It intensified, illuminating the cavern as it created bright rays that lanced into the abyss. The laughter turned to screams, and Rachel felt as if they were pushing against a dam about to burst. Together. Keep fighting, she urged. But just as they stood on the precipice of victory, a shadow formed in the center, arms outstretched like a grotesque parody of freedom, its familiar features twisting her heart into knots. Rachel, you can't escape what you are. You will join us, Rachel gasped, recognition dawning. A face she never wanted to see again emerged from the depths, pulling her back toward despair in an instant. It was the face of her past, a haunting reminder. Mom! No! Jack screamed as darkness surged forward once more. Her past loomed tall, growing larger, intertwining with the shadows around them. Rachel took a deep breath, ready to fight against the tide of memories, but would she be able to withstand the pull of the shadows that threatened to drag her under? Could she defy her very own darkness, or was it too late? The answer was obscured in the chaos, and the shadows growled, hungry for the final takeover. Rachel felt her resolve waver as the familiar face twisted into a horrid grin, dark eyes glinting with mockery. Memories flooded back, the laughter, the warmth, and the betrayal. Shivering, she fought against the cold grip of fear that threatened to engulf her. The shadows tightened, unyielding, wrapping around her like chains forged from her own guilt. "Let go of me!" she screamed. "I'm not yours to take." Her voice echoed, ricocheting off the cavern walls, resonating deep within the darkness. But the face before her merely laughed, a sound that slithered into her mind. "You think you can escape? I'm always with you. I'm your past, your darkness. Stop!" Jack yelled, his small body trembling, the light from their bond flickering as the shadows clawed at it. Emma clung tightly to him, eyes wide with terror. Rachel's heart seized at the sight of her children engulfed in that suffocating blackness. "Look at what you've become, Rachel. Look at what you're with," the apparition continued. "You're weak. You always have been." "Shut up!" Rachel shouted, gritting her teeth. The golden woman beside her, flickering like a flame on the brink of extinguishment, thrust her hands forward, trying to hold back the surge of shadows. They intertwined like smoke, swirling, threatening to snuff out their light. "Remember your truth," the woman urged, her voice steady, even as her light dimmed. "You are more than your past. Your love can cleanse this darkness." Rachel blinked back tears, holding on to every precious memory of joy, each moment that reminded her of who she was: the laughter at the dinner table, the bedtime stories wrapped in gentle embrace, the fierce hugs after a long day. They were there. She just had to grasp them. "Together!" she roared, feeling the warmth of Jack and Emma's hands tight in hers. She focused and let their love surging through her, illuminating every crease of doubt. "We're stronger than this." The shadows screeched in protest as Rachel turned her vision inward, imagining the light, bright and blazing. She pushed against the suffocating grip of despair, feeding the energy of her heart into her palms as if she could create a fire. "Get away from us!" Rachel cried, pulling back, and the shadows shrieked, their grasp weakening for a heartbeat. But the figure advanced, drawing closer, its laughter now a haunting melody that pulled at her sanity. "You cannot outrun me. You are part of me." "No!" Rachel shouted, filled with a sudden surge of anger. "I define who I am. You are just a shadow of what was." A fierce light erupted from their connection, an explosion of golden fire that pushed outward. The cavern roared with a thunderous clash as love and darkness battled at the threshold. But the shadows clawed back, relentless, and the woman struggled against unseen barriers. Then darkness enveloped her children again, Emma's terrified gaze piercing through the pitch. "Mom! Help!" Time slowed as panic snaked through her veins, but Rachel wouldn't falter. "Stay with me. Stay strong." The apparition loomed, grinning wider, as Rachel gathered every ounce of strength. "You will join us now!" Rachel screamed, her heart hammering against her ribcage. Realizing they may not have much time, she formed the vibrant energy in her mind, channeling the light from her heart, the remnants of their past filling her with a fiery resolve. With intense clarity, a plan ignited in her thoughts. "Together!" she shouted, thrusting their combined light forward, as beams exploded into fragments scattering the advancing shadows. But, as she felt the power build, a sudden disorienting silence swept through the cavern. The shadows shivered, pulsating with angry anticipation. Something was reacting. "Bind them, Rachel. Bind the shadows with your love." The woman shouted, experiencing renewed vigor. The shadows recoiled, twitching like startled snakes. Rachel had to act. Closing her eyes, she anchored her heart to her children, weaving their love into a net of light. But just as she reached out to bind the shadows, the darkness rippled, fabric swirling out of alignment as if reality was tearing itself apart. "Your children will pay for your defiance," the apparition hissed, fading into the swirling mass. "You will never win." Rachel's heart plummeted. A new kind of fear gripped her, one clawing at her insides, desperate and menacing. The air crackled with tension, thick like a storm about to unleash. "Jack! Emma!" she cried out as the shadows surged, overwhelming and insatiable. How could she fight against the echoes of her own darkness? The woman gripped her shoulder, wincing as they were pulled further into the void of despair, but Rachel steeled herself. Stay with me. We can win. And in that moment, something deep within her rumbled, a seed of determination sprouting in the soil of her soul. If she lost them now, how could she live with herself? But then, in the swirling chaos, Rachel felt something dark and powerful lurking beneath. An unexpected whispered promise, a bitter truth waiting to be uncovered. Would it bring salvation, or would it ensnare them all in shadow? With a wave of energy pulsating around her, she knew she was about to touch the very heart of the darkness. The moment hung in the air, ready to tip either way. What hidden secrets would she unearth as she faced the core of her own darkness? The darkness pulsated around Rachel, a living entity with no true form. It breathed, it crawled, and it hissed with an insatiable hunger. Everything was swirling into a vortex, and Rachel felt herself nearing its center. It wasn't just a fight against something outside, it was a confrontation with her very soul. The shadows seemed to whisper her name, taunting her, urging her to give in to despair. Focus! The golden woman's voice was steady, but the flickering light around her was fading like a dimming star. Rachel's heart raced, she could barely breathe. She could feel Jack and Emma's warmth, their small hands squeezing hers tightly, anchoring her in the storm. Mom! Emma cried, her voice breaking through the cacophony of shadows. The sound ignited a fiery anger within Rachel. They wouldn't be taken. Not today. No! Rachel screamed, thrusting her hands forward, summoning love from the deepest recesses of her being. The intent behind her movement wasn't just to protect, it was fueled by everything she had ever felt. Laughter, pain, hope, all molded into a radiant force. A blinding light erupted, pushing back against the shadows, illuminating the cavern's edges momentarily. But just as fear threatened to take hold again, the shadows responded, morphing and twisting, trying to reclaim their ground. Can't you see? It's too late. The face loomed closer, distorted yet eerily familiar. Its presence was suffocating, a weight on Rachel's chest. The apparition leaned in, and Rachel could smell that familiar scent, a scent of betrayal, of the past. You think love can save you? You'll always be mine. No! Rachel gritted her teeth, adrenaline surging through her veins. She refused to let the darkness win. The image of their family flashed through her mind, Jack's laughter, Emma's quiet strength. She fought to keep the light alive in her heart. Together! She called out, and the golden woman steadied her gaze, nodding. Rachel began to chant their names, drawing strength from every syllable. Jack, Emma, stay with me. The words reverberated off the cavern walls, bouncing back with a fierce determination. The ground shook beneath her, and the shadows flailed like wounded animals, hissing and screeching, but they kept pressing, hungry for the light. What do you want? Rachel boomed, her voice rising above the chaos. What more do you want from me? Suddenly, answers rushed forth, palpable like icy breath on her skin. You must sacrifice. Your courage, your love, your children will pay if you refuse. The darkness shuddered, momentarily stilling, the emptiness within it expanding. Rachel's blood ran cold. Sacrifice? I wouldn't give anything. Panic ignited within her as the shadows began to uprise, swirling like a black tornado. This wasn't merely a fight, it was an ultimatum. One that threatened her very essence, and her children. The ground cracked beneath them, erupting into fissures that exhaled despair. Jack! Emma! She called, but doubt crept in. What if she hesitated? What if she failed? The golden woman's light flickered violently, sweat beading on Rachel's brow. Embrace the truth. She pleaded, but even the woman's voice trembled. Rachel clenched her fists, drawing energy from the pain, from her children's fear. The shadows recoiled, then surged again, a fierce retort against her strength. You will lose them. You will lose everything. The apparition hissed, morphing into 1,000 tortured faces. Enough! Rachel shouted. I am not afraid of you. I fought to get here. You do not own me. With every ounce of love and fury, she unleashed a blinding burst of light that shattered the malevolent whispers. But as the light streamed forth, the shadows convulsed violently, shrieking in defiance. It was a moment of triumph, and yet it felt fragile. Then she caught something in the shadows, a flicker of familiarity, an echo of a past she'd tried to bury. The truth wrapped around Rachel, cold and heavy. She faltered just for a second, uncertainty clawing at her resolve. "What is it?" she gasped, eyes wide. "What hidden truth do you want me to see?" And in that crucible of light and darkness, Rachel faced a reflection that was terrifyingly her own. As the shadows whispered their final temptation, one thought clawed at her mind. The truth she feared the most wasn't just in the battle, it was in the truth she had long pushed aside. Could she bear to see herself fully, knowing her past was as entwined in the darkness as it was in the light? As the chaos swirled and surged around her, one question lingered in the air, heavy and laden with dread: what would she be willing to confront to save her children? Would the reckoning lead to salvation or ruin? Rachel's heart hammered like an erratic drum. The shadows slithered closer, their whispers turning into a rancorous chant: face your past, face your truth. She hesitated, ensnared between a searing light and suffocating darkness. "Stop!" she bellowed, her voice cutting through the thick air. The golden woman flickered beside her, the weight of the moment settling in heavy silence. Jack and Emma squeezed her hands tighter, their innocent faces reflecting an unyielding trust. But within Rachel, dread coiled like a serpent, ready to strike. The darkness around her writhed, morphing into shapes that were once familiar. A young girl with piercing blue eyes, the ghost of a long-buried childhood. A man, kindness etched into his features, then twisted into a caricature of malice. Rage and despair pulsed within her, blurring her memories. "Look at them!" the apparition howled, voices intertwining into a cacophony that resonated deep inside her. "These are the sacrifices you've made. They are the shadows of your choices." "No!" Rachel gasped, each beam of light feeling less certain. "Leave them alone!" The shadows shrieked, and the cavern echoed with her denial. They fed off her hesitation, shifting purposefully, driving the point home. Each distorted face bore resemblance to someone she once loved or lost, and each moment of recognition cut deeper, like a blade scraping against bone. The golden woman's light flickered even more, throwing ghostly silhouettes against the walls. "Embrace it! Embrace who you are!" urged the golden woman, her voice now laced with urgency. The turmoil clawed at Rachel's mind, memories flashing her decision to leave, the arguments that never found resolution, the safe smiles hiding countless fears. Tears welled in her eyes. Would surrendering to this truth really mean losing everything? "Mom, please." Emma's tiny voice pulled her back, a tether to the moment. Rachel looked down, seeking reassurance in her daughter's gaze. But as she did, the shadows continued their assault, enveloping the children, making them part of the swirling darkness. "No! Don't touch them!" Rachel screamed. She fought against the suffocating despair, lunging forward. The light from her heart flared, illuminating the edges of the apparitions just within the shadows. "Your love is a beacon," the golden woman encouraged. "Use it." The words ignited a spark within Rachel. A rumbling rage surged. Love wasn't just a force, it was a weapon. "I see you. I know you," she shouted. The shadows twisted violently, as if her acknowledgement burned them. "I will embrace my truth," Rachel cried, her voice layering with strength. "I will not be shackled by fear." The shadows screamed, morphing into writhing tendrils, retreating from her blazing light. She pressed onward, her hands glowing fiercely as she invoked each word: Jack, Emma. I am their mother. I choose to protect you. There was a sudden shift in the air. The darkness wavered like a flag in the wind, the shadows tearing at themselves as if her radiance held them at bay. But they weren't done. They surged back, pushing hard against her will. The cavern shook, stone walls cracking as Rachel felt the heat from the depths of her memories pushing against the light. With every breath, she felt the weight of her past trying to cling to her, to bring her into its depths. The pain was sharp, yet there was a sense of clarity. She was stronger than the shadows claimed to let the truth in could liberate her. But there was a question tethered in the air, heavy and palpable. In the distance, a flash caught her eye, the remnants of a door, standing ajar, flickering with blinding light. Was it an escape or a deeper descent? Mom! What are you doing? Emma's voice trembled, pulling Rachel from her trance. Fight! We will fight together. But as Rachel turned back to the darkness, a lingering thought seeped into her mind. What if stepping into the light meant facing not just her past, but her very worst self? Would she still want to push through? And just as realization dawned, the shadows screamed in unison, ready to reclaim their territory. Would Rachel willingly step into the light, knowing it could potentially consume her from within, or would she risk losing everything to stay cocooned within the familiar darkness? The answer loomed in the air, shaking the very foundation of her existence. In that moment of anguish, a painful decision showed itself, and the choice began to take shape, one that would change everything. Rachel stood at the precipice between light and shadow, heart racing as the cacophony of conflicting emotions clawed at her sanity. Jack and Emma clung to her, their innocent faces filled with fear, but also with a radiant trust that ignited a spark of determination within her. I will not let you take them, she roared, her voice breaking through the tumult, echoing thunderously in the cavern. As she stepped forward, she felt their love swell inside her, and she rushed toward the fragments of truth hidden within her own past, a past steeped in fear, mistakes, and hurt, but also love. I see you, she shouted again, looking directly at the shifting shadows that tried to drown her family in despair. You don't own me. I am not afraid anymore. The shadows recoiled as if burned, momentarily releasing their grip on her children. Rachel stretched out a hand, pulling her children close, their warmth sending electric ripples of courage surging through her veins. Jack, Emma, hold on to me, she urged, and they tightened their grip, forming an unbreakable chain of love and resolve. Each scream of the shadows pierced the air, hissing warnings of despair. Embrace your darkness, Rachel. You'll never escape, they cried, their grotesque forms morphing into haunting visions of pain. Memories flickered past her eyes, her failures as a mother, the moments she felt protective instinct wrestle with guilt. Enough, she screamed, shaking her head in defiance. You are nothing. I choose love over fear. With that declaration, the blazing light inside her erupted outward, illuminating everything in the cavern. The Golden Woman stood resolute beside her, channeling that energy into a barrier that thrust against the shadow's oppressive force. A chorus of anguished screams erupted as the darkness became frantic, recoiling and writhing. What are you? It howled, its tenacity faltering. I am their mother, Rachel declared, her voice reverberating like a battle cry. She focused on her children, their faces shining with trust and love. What we share is stronger than you can imagine. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, desperate to reclaim its prey, but Rachel held firm, remembering every joyous moment, the first steps, the bedtime stories, the simple laughter shared as a family. Those memories fueled her light, driving her towards the depths of her own heart. I embrace my truth, she screamed, the light expanding like a supernova, bright and fierce. The shadows screeched, their forms shifting wildly, raging against the onslaught of Rachel's love. The Golden Woman fell beside her, but not without delivering one final dose of strength. You are the light, she urged. With her final breath, Rachel concentrated every part of her being, gathering the sheer force of their love and transforming it into a blinding attack against the darkness. In the name of my children, I choose love. The light exploded outward, washing over the shadows, dissolving their grasp on the cavern. Rachel could feel the darkness beginning to recede, its anguished cries growing softer as the light surged forth, reclaiming the space that had once been filled with despair. Then came an abrupt silence. Everything froze, the shadows retreating into a swirling mist. Rachel felt a shift beneath her feet, the ground solidifying as light permeated through, illuminating the previously hidden paths. Mom! We did it! Jack shouted, his voice filled with disbelief, and Rachel turned to see his eyes sparkling with hope. Together! Emma echoed, her own spirit ignited by the warmth of family. As they stood sealed in their embrace, Rachel felt the last tendrils of darkness dissipate into nothingness. A void that had held her family captive was finally shattered. The oppressive heaviness lifted, leaving only the sound of their ragged breaths but also a newfound clarity and peace. "I knew we could fight it," Rachel said, the relief washing over her like a cleansing wave. Tears streamed down her cheeks, not just of sorrow but of triumph. She held her children tighter, shielding them from the remnants of pain that had haunted her for too long. In the distance, sunlight pierced through the cavern entrance, illuminating the way onward, a promise beckoning them toward brighter days. "What now?" Emma whispered, glancing at the golden woman, who now shimmered with the warmth of a mother's love. "Now you walk into the light, into freedom," the woman replied with a soft smile. "Embrace your truth, and always remember the love you hold is far more powerful than you can ever imagine." With that, Rachel took a step forward, hand in hand with her children, united in their journey. They approached the light as one, leaving behind the shadows of their past and forging ahead into a future full of hope, a future they would build together. As they stepped into the sun, Rachel breathed in deeply, feeling the weight of her fears lift entirely. The darkness was behind them. And together, they were more than a family. They were warriors of love, forever bound by the light. This was their moment. This was their new beginning. Now, here's where I need your help. You need to subscribe now to catch more exclusive stories like this one. Smash the like button and show your support. Your likes feed the algorithm, helping others discover these powerful tales. Flood the comments section below with your thoughts, reactions, and theories. Let us hear what you think about Rachel's journey. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, we keep the love and light alive.